In the heart of Istanbul, amidst its vibrant streets and ancient skyline, lies a building shrouded in mystery and terror, the Saudi Consulate. What happened here on October 2nd, 2018, would shock the world and expose a sinister web of power, deception, and brutality. Jamal Khashoggi, a respected journalist and a vocal critic of the Saudi government, walked into this building that day and was never seen alive again. What followed was a chilling sequence of events that read like a spy thriller, but were all too real. Accusations flew, international outrage erupted, governments pointed fingers. But behind the headlines lay a deeper, darker story, one of betrayal, silenced voices, and a meticulously orchestrated crime. Who wanted Jamal Khashoggi dead, and why? How did a respected journalist become the target of one of the most brutal assassinations in modern history? And what does this mean for the future of press freedom and human rights worldwide? This is the story of Jamal Khashoggi's assassination, a tale of power, politics, and the fight for truth. Stay with us as we unravel the mystery, step by step. To understand the tragedy of Jamal Khashoggi's assassination, we must first understand the man himself, a journalist who refused to be silenced, even as the risks grew insurmountable. Jamal Khashoggi was born in Medina, Saudi Arabia, in 1958, into a prominent family with ties to power. His grandfather was the personal physician to King Abdulaziz Al Saud, the founder of modern Saudi Arabia. But while Jamal's roots were deeply embedded in Saudi society, his vision for the country often stood at odds with its rulers. For decades, Khashoggi worked as a journalist, editor, and commentator, gaining a reputation for his insightful coverage of Middle Eastern politics. He interviewed figures like Osama bin Laden during his early days in Afghanistan, providing rare glimpses into the region's tumultuous dynamics. Yet, as Saudi Arabia's political landscape shifted under Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, known as MBS, Khashoggi's reporting took on a sharper edge. Initially, Khashoggi supported MBS's promises of reform, including loosening social restrictions and modernizing the Saudi economy. But over time, cracks in the prince's image began to show. Behind the glossy headlines of progress, there was a growing intolerance for dissent. Activists, critics, and even members of the royal family were silenced, detained, or exiled. Khashoggi became one of those critics. From his new home in the United States, he began writing columns for The Washington Post, highlighting human rights abuses and warning of MBS's authoritarian grip. His words were bold and uncompromising. Saudi Arabia wasn't always this repressive. Now it's unbearable, he wrote. But these criticisms came at a cost. Khashoggi knew he was being watched. Friends warned him that returning to Saudi Arabia was too dangerous. His own fiancée, Hatice Cengiz, recalled his growing anxiety about his safety. Yet, despite the risks, Khashoggi believed in the power of journalism to hold the powerful accountable. In the months leading up to his death, Khashoggi had been working on a new project, a network to amplify the voices of dissidents across the Arab world. It was a cause close to his heart, but it also made him a target. By late September 2018, Khashoggi needed a document to finalize his marriage to Hatice. The Saudi consulate in Istanbul seemed like the only place to get it. Despite his fears, he decided to make the visit. On September 28th, he entered the consulate for the first time, accompanied by Hatice, and was assured by officials that his paperwork would be ready in a few days. But something about their response left him uneasy. Khashoggi told Hatice, "If anything happens to me, call Yasin Aktay," a close friend and advisor to the Turkish president. On October 2nd, 2018, Khashoggi returned to the consulate, alone. This time, he would not come back out. As Hatice waited outside, the minutes turned into hours. She texted him repeatedly, but there was no response. Panic set in as night fell, and she realized something was terribly wrong. Inside the consulate, what happened to Jamal Khashoggi was horrifying beyond comprehension. Turkish investigators would later uncover chilling details. A team of 15 Saudi operatives had arrived in Istanbul just hours before Khashoggi's appointment. Among them were intelligence agents, forensic specialists, and members of MBS's inner circle. This was no accident. It was a carefully planned operation executed with ruthless precision. Khashoggi's fate was sealed the moment he stepped through those doors. What exactly transpired inside remains shrouded in mystery, but evidence points to a brutal interrogation that quickly escalated into murder. The operatives reportedly dismembered his body using a bone saw, a detail so grotesque it stunned the world when it came to light. But in those early hours after his disappearance, no one outside the consulate knew what had happened. Hatice, desperate for answers, contacted Turkish authorities, who began piecing together the puzzle. The world would soon learn of Jamal Khashoggi's horrific end, but not before a storm of denials, cover-ups, and international intrigue would unfold. Who were these operatives? Who gave the order? And how could such a heinous act take place on foreign soil? These questions would ignite a global outcry, setting the stage for one of the most consequential investigations of our time. Jamal Khashoggi's story was far from over. It was only just beginning. The disappearance of Jamal Khashoggi quickly became a matter of global intrigue. Outside the Saudi consulate, Hatice Cengiz waited anxiously, her calls and messages unanswered. Hours turned into a frantic blur, and by nightfall she alerted Turkish authorities, sparking a chain of events that would unravel a chilling conspiracy. Initially, the Saudi government denied any knowledge of Khashoggi's whereabouts. He left the consulate safely, they claimed. But Turkish authorities were unconvinced. The Saudis refused to allow immediate access to the consulate, further deepening suspicions. Then came the leaks, details so grotesque and incriminating that they shocked even seasoned investigators. Turkish intelligence revealed they had audio recordings from inside the consulate, documenting Khashoggi's final moments. These recordings, they claimed, captured his confrontation with a team of Saudi operatives, his desperate pleas for help, and, ultimately, his brutal murder. The Turkish government alleged that 15 Saudi operatives had flown into Istanbul on private jets just hours before Khashoggi's appointment. This team, including intelligence officers, military personnel, and a forensic expert, was tasked with one horrifying mission: silence Jamal Khashoggi. Among them was Dr. Salah al-Tubaigi, a forensic specialist infamous for his grim expertise. He was allegedly equipped with a bone saw, a chilling indication that the murder was premeditated. Turkish officials suggested the team had meticulously planned every detail, from the timing of Khashoggi's visit to the disposal of his remains. At 3:28 a.m. on October 2nd, surveillance footage showed 2 private jets arriving at Istanbul's Ataturk airport. The operatives, some carrying diplomatic passports, were seen entering the city in small groups. By mid-morning, they had convened at the Saudi consulate. Meanwhile, Khashoggi, unaware of the danger awaiting him, arrived at 1:14 p.m. Surveillance footage captured his final moments, walking up the steps of the consulate, pausing briefly, and entering the building. It was the last time he was seen alive. Turkish investigators uncovered damning evidence. They found that shortly after Khashoggi's arrival, the consulate's security cameras were abruptly disabled. Cleaning crews were called in, and staff members were instructed to leave early. These actions, investigators argued, were deliberate attempts to conceal the crime. By 5:50 p.m., less than 5 hours after Khashoggi entered the consulate, the operatives were seen leaving their hotel. Some carried large suitcases, sparking speculation about their contents. They boarded their flights and left Turkey that same evening. Among the operatives was Maher Abdulaziz Mutreb, a high-ranking intelligence officer and close associate of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. His presence at the scene was a key link in connecting the assassination to Saudi Arabia's leadership. But the question remained: who gave the order? The operation was too sophisticated, too precise, to be the work of rogue agents. Suspicion quickly turned toward the Crown Prince himself, whose tightening grip on power had already silenced countless critics. As the details emerged, international outrage grew. Governments, human rights organizations, and journalists demanded answers. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan called the murder a premeditated political crime, while Saudi officials continued to deny involvement, offering conflicting narratives that only deepened the scandal. Initially, Saudi Arabia insisted that Khashoggi had left the consulate unharmed. When evidence to the contrary became undeniable, they pivoted, claiming he had died in a fist fight. Later, they admitted he had been killed, but described it as a rogue operation carried out without MBS's knowledge. These shifting accounts only fueled suspicion that the Crown Prince himself was complicit. Pressure mounted on Saudi Arabia's key allies, particularly the United States, to respond. President Donald Trump faced intense scrutiny for his close ties to the Saudi regime, while some members of Congress called for sanctions and a reevaluation of U.S.-Saudi relations. The administration hesitated, citing economic interests and strategic partnerships. The CIA, however, would later conclude with high confidence that Mohammed bin Salman had personally ordered the assassination, a revelation that sent shockwaves through the global political landscape. The fallout from Khashoggi's murder extended far beyond Saudi Arabia. It became a rallying cry for press freedom and human rights, exposing the dangers faced by journalists who dare to challenge those in power. For many, Khashoggi's death symbolized the lengths to which authoritarian regimes will go to silence dissent. Meanwhile, Turkish authorities continued their search for Khashoggi's remains. Despite extensive efforts, his body was never found, adding another layer of heartbreak to an already devastating story. Reports suggested his dismembered body had been smuggled out of the consulate, possibly dissolved in acid or buried in a secret location. The absence of his remains became a haunting reminder of the crime's brutality and the lengths taken to cover it up. As the investigation unfolded, one thing became clear: Jamal Khashoggi's murder was not just an attack on a single journalist. It was a calculated assault on truth itself. The conspiracy stretched from Istanbul to Riyadh, implicating some of the most powerful figures in the world. But who would be held accountable? And would justice ever be served? These questions loomed large as the world awaited answers. With the world demanding answers, the investigation into Jamal Khashoggi's assassination intensified. As evidence mounted, the question of accountability became unavoidable, forcing Saudi Arabia into the global spotlight. Under intense international pressure, Saudi officials eventually admitted to Khashoggi's death, but maintained that it was the result of a rogue operation. However, the findings of Turkish authorities and intelligence agencies told a very different story, one that implicated some of the highest-ranking officials in the Saudi government. In December 2018, Saudi Arabia announced the indictment of 11 individuals allegedly involved in the murder. 5 of them faced the death penalty, while others received prison sentences. But critics argued that these trials were mere theatrics, a public relations move designed to shield the true orchestrators of the crime. The proceedings were closed to the public, shrouded in secrecy, and failed to address the involvement of senior officials like Maher Abdulaziz Mutreb or the forensic expert Salah al-Tubaigi. Most damning of all was the CIA's assessment, which concluded with high confidence that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman had personally approved the assassination. The report pointed to intercepted communications and the close ties between the operatives and the Crown Prince. Despite this, MBS denied any involvement, calling the murder a heinous crime, and insisting that it had been carried out without his knowledge. The international response to this revelation was divided. Some nations imposed sanctions on Saudi officials believed to be involved, while others prioritized economic and strategic ties over justice. The United States, a long-standing ally of Saudi Arabia, faced significant backlash for its muted response. Although some members of Congress demanded stronger action, including sanctions on MBS, the administration stopped short of directly implicating the Crown Prince, citing national interests. For Hatice Cengiz, Khashoggi's fiancé, and countless others, these responses were deeply unsatisfying. In the years that followed, she became a vocal advocate for justice, tirelessly campaigning to keep Khashoggi's story alive. Her calls for accountability resonated with journalists, activists, and human rights organizations worldwide, turning Khashoggi into a symbol of the fight for press freedom. Despite these efforts, the geopolitical realities were stark. Saudi Arabia remained a powerful player on the global stage, and its strategic alliances made it nearly untouchable. While the murder tarnished MBS's reputation, it did little to curtail his consolidation of power. Still, Khashoggi's legacy endured. His writings, his courage, and the global outrage sparked by his death became a rallying cry for those fighting against authoritarian regimes. Organizations like Reporters Without Borders and Amnesty International redoubled their efforts to protect journalists and expose crimes against dissenters. In 2021, a U.S. intelligence report under the Biden administration reaffirmed the conclusion that MBS was responsible for the operation that led to Khashoggi's death. Yet, the Crown Prince faced no legal consequences. Critics argued that justice for Jamal Khashoggi remained elusive, caught in the crossfire of diplomacy and realpolitik. And so, the story of Jamal Khashoggi's assassination stands as a stark reminder of the price of truth in a world dominated by power and influence. It is a story of courage, silenced but not forgotten, a testament to the enduring fight for justice in the face of overwhelming odds. As we reflect on Khashoggi's life and death, we are left with a haunting question. How many voices must be silenced before the world takes a stand? His story is not just a cautionary tale, it is a call to action for all who believe in the power of truth. Thanks for watching till the end. If you found this video intriguing, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below, and let's continue to uncover the truth behind the world's most chilling crimes together. Stay safe, stay curious, and remember, the darkest secrets often hide in plain sight. Until next time, thank you for being a part of Deadly Secrets.